Only Miss Hodges and myself. No
Just
Miss
us.
Todrick. No Miss Tickle. She must be busy.
Yeah, just us.
Oh. Show everybody.
Here she is.
Oh. Anyway, we are going to be in lesson 3. Final video notes for this chapter and probably for the end of the year, unless we do something for your final. So
I'm here now.
We'll see. All right. Why does it matter?
It matters because
I'm here.
Because Miss Tickle is with us.
Oh, so thank you for showing up. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so here's my arrow.
Is that what matters?
There's my arrow. Most people in the Roman Empire practiced many religions before Christianity. Christianity was based on the teachings of Jesus, and it spread all over the Roman Empire and became Rome's official religion.
Go, Jesus. It's your birthday.
So that's why it matters, because it influences the Western world, which is us, and it comes all the way, the monotheistic religion comes all the way across to the United States eventually. So it matters because that's what the Roman Empire is about in this time period and where we're going. So let's just dive right in and let's go.
Nope. All right, guys. So despite its general religious tolerance, which means, okay, let me read the sentence first. Despite its religious tolerance, Rome came into conflict with the Jews. So essentially, Rome was tolerant of other civilizations' religions, and they didn't force them to necessarily change their religion. However, Rome did come into conflict with the Jews, and we're going to talk about why. So, the Romans were a very religious people. However, they did not insist on imposing or putting their beliefs on other civilizations. Now, they did practice freedom of worship. So when the Romans conquered people, they allowed them to keep their own religious beliefs and customs, but sometimes the Romans would adopt the gods of the people they conquered. So again, we're seeing cultural diffusion all the way back in ancient times. The Romans essentially would conquer some other civilization, and then if they liked certain gods or goddesses that they had, they would put it into their Roman religion, and that essentially is cultural diffusion, right? All right, let's keep moving.
Okay, so we have talked about the Greek gods, and then all that the Greek people believed about the gods and how they thought they influenced their life, and they had a direct say in what was going on. So because of cultural diffusion and how other empires and other cities copied the ones from the past, the Romans copied the Greeks, and they borrowed their religion and brought it over to Rome. But they changed it just a little bit, and they wanted it to be like theirs. So they wanted it to be their own. So the god of war, instead of Ares, becomes Mars. Then there was a special god for the soldiers, Mithras. And if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, then Mithra, that vest that they wore, Mithras was a vest that, the Hobbit, what's his name? Bilbo, that he had. And so you've got all these things that play into our time too. Then there was Hipona, which is the god of horses. Felicitas was the god of luck, and we say felicity is supposed to mean that you have good luck. The god of plenty was Ops, and then the god of victory was Victoria, and that's where we get the word victory from, Victoria, and it's a name that means winner, just like we had the god of victory in Greece that was called Nike. So a lot of these gods overlap, and they work their way into our world today, and it's still part of our language and what we say. So there's another example of cultural diffusion in the Western world.
So I know I mentioned that Rome was tolerant of other religions. However, there was a time in history when the ancient Romans were not tolerant or accepting of other religions. So let's talk about that. So the question says, when was the only time the Romans banned a religion? And I'm going to say this slowly since I know you guys have to write this. It says, when the rulers of Rome considered it a political threat or problem. Remember, the Roman Empire went through a period of chaos. And so anytime something threatened their politics or their government, that is when they would put a hold or a restraint or a ban on something that would hurt their government. So in this case, it would have been religion. All right, so if you don't have that yet, go ahead and pause the video and get that information down because it is important. Second question says, clashes with the Jews, so meaning they didn't agree with the Jews. So why did some Romans feel their gods were being insulted by the Jews? And so the answer to that would be Jews refused to pray or worship to the Roman gods. So if we think about Jewish religion, it is monotheistic in that they believe in one God. So Romans felt that they were being insulted, or their gods were being insulted, because the Jews weren't worshiping multiple gods, these polytheistic views. The Jews were worshiping only one God, and it wasn't a God that the Romans had in their religion. So that's why the Romans felt threatened by that, because a lot of the other religions we've talked about were polytheistic, many gods, and the Romans even pulled from other civilizations' gods. However, this is the first time we see monotheism, and people start to feel threatened by that, and specifically the Roman Empire felt threatened by that. So that's where the conflict begins. Okay, let's remember that the Romans were polytheistic. They believed in more than one God, and the Jews were monotheistic. They believed in only one God. So we have some causes and effects to why the Jews would rebel against Rome. Some of the causes were that Romans conquered Judea, the Jews oppressed Roman rule because they both had different religious views. The Jews rebelled against Rome because they were being treated harshly, taxed heavily, and basically the Romans were trying to suppress them. This led to the effect of Emperor Hadrian banning certain Jewish religious rituals and traditions. Revolts are crushed. Jerusalem, the capital city, is destroyed, and Jews are forced to leave. Okay, so now we have your hot question. Although the Romans did not ban Judaism in the empire, why did the Jews continue to rebel? Think about what I just said. I just explained it to you, so if you don't remember, go back. You guys know what to do now. We're exhausted with this. Just answer your hot questions. Goodbye.
All right, guys, so we want to move forward, and we're talking about a new religion, Christianity, and how it grew out of Judaism. Christianity is a religion based on the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. And according to the Jewish prophets, a Messiah, or God's anointed one, or chosen one, would come to lead them. So in the Bible, they've got lots of prophets who tell stories and tell prophecy about what's going to happen in the future, and these prophets are telling us about a Messiah that is to come according to the Jewish faith. So fill in those blanks and we'll move on to the next slide. All right, so many consider Jesus of Nazareth to be the Messiah, and this is where we're going to start filling in some blanks. Much of what we know about Jesus is found in the Christian Bible in the New Testament, and the Christian Bible is divided into two parts. Part of it is before Jesus was born, and part of it is after Jesus was born. Just like we mark the beginning, where the timeline marks BC and AD, the Christian Bible is divided into two parts like that. And according to the Bible, in the New Testament, Jesus traveled around teaching about God, and his teachings attracted many followers. But the Roman leaders and many religious leaders thought that his teachings challenged their authority. And we've talked about this before. Anytime that the government feels threatened, sometimes they make decisions to take care of those threats that they feel. Jesus was arrested, and he was executed by a method of crucifixion or being nailed to the cross. Now, these are two of our vocabulary words, and you can find more information about that in your textbook. And according to the Christian beliefs, Jesus rose from the dead 3 days after he was crucified and killed. Then he rose from the dead 3 days later, and the Christian faith calls that the resurrection. And that's where they base their faith on and base their religion on the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, and that's called the resurrection. So take a moment, pause it, finish filling out these blanks, and we can talk more about that in class. And because the Jewish people believed that Jesus, many of the Jewish people, and then it went to the Gentiles, the people who were not Jewish, that was anybody else who was not Jewish, just like the Romans considered anybody who was not Roman to be barbaric. Many people considered Jesus to be the Messiah, the promised one that the Old Testament had told us about. And so as people began to follow they became apostles, and those are the guys who believed in Jesus and would spread his teachings. And several of them grew in terms of popularity and the things that they wrote about, and they're still part of the Christian Bible today. So one of the guys that falls into this category is named Paul of Tarsus, and Tarsus is a Greek city-state, and he told them about Tarsus is a city in the Roman Empire, and he traveled about and taught about Jesus all over the Roman Empire. The followers of Jesus were called Christians, and some of the Roman leaders killed Christians who refused to worship the Roman gods. And finally, Roman emperors, they banned Christianity and made it against the law to practice that altogether. And so we've got down here a primary source that comes from the New Testament, the book of Romans, and it told people how to treat those who were treating them bad. Oh, excuse me. And so Paul addressed people who were treating them badly and what they should do about that. Around 300 AD, which is going to be way in the future, we're not there yet, the Roman Emperor Constantine became a Christian, and he removed the bans on Christianity. And by bans, we just mean that they allowed it to be not illegal anymore, and it's not something that was banned for them to do, that they could do that. Later, Christianity becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire under a different emperor. But you can't make anybody believe anything. People have to choose to believe that themselves. And so later, that religion will be changed, and Christianity will not be the official religion anymore. But that is Christianity and the leaders that were in that, the apostles. And we'll talk more about the rest of the apostles and the disciples in class. Thanks.